My name is Kelly Dale with Off the Beaded Path Beadstore.com. I am so happy you've joined me today because we are going to be making a brand new pendant called the Dew Drop Pendant. So this was actually a pattern that I created specifically for my free shipping Friday promotion during May of 2024. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, every first Friday of the month, we offer free shipping for orders over $15 or more that are shipped within the U.S. So a lot of times I'll offer something to go with that, whether it be a coupon or a pattern or whatever. So for this specific project, this was for that free shipping Friday, and it was a surprise class, which meant that I told everybody exactly what they needed, and then they had no clue what the project was until they got it. I had so many people asking me for surprise projects, and I thought that would be such a good one to do. So if you're seeing this, you are either getting it early because you are a free shipping Friday customer, which we super appreciate, or you're seeing it for the first time as a video here on my YouTube channel. So if you are enjoying my channel, please hit that like button and that subscribe button. The like button doesn't get me anything. It just lets the algorithm know, like, hey, I enjoyed this video, and it will put this video into other people's algorithms to let more people see my videos. So if you could just give it a thumbs up button, I would greatly appreciate that. And I would love for you to subscribe so that you can see all of the videos that I come out with. So let's take a look at this beautiful pendant and see what you're going to need to do the project. Okay, so to start, let's take a look at some of the beautiful samples that I have made up for this Dew Drop Pendant. So this first one here is a beautiful kind of Pacific opal, cream, and purple, which I love. And you can see I just hung it from some chain, and it's really pretty. This middle one, man, I made this. Sammy took me out of town for my birthday for a day, and I made this while we were on that trip. And y'all, I think this is one of my favorite ones. This has, and I wish you could actually see it in person, because it has beautiful olives and fuchsia pinks. That center stone is actually a light cyan shimmer, but man, look at it there with that really pretty kind of vitriol medium drop. Like, oh, not decided what I'm going to put on that one yet. And then here is the original one that I played with and made. This one uses kind of oranges and pad pardacia colors, and then the beautiful crystal ABs. And then I have done a crawl necklace here using 11s and 8s, and then you can see I wanted to pull some color into this as well, so I threw in some little 3mm Bicones and then some 6mm fire polish that actually matched that piece. So I've not finished that one yet because I'm just been playing. But these are some of the color samples. Now let's look at what you're going to need to get started. So you can see here, I have quite a few materials, but there's not a lot of some of the materials, so this can be a great stash buster. So the first thing you're going to need is a 16mm chaton. The reason they call this a chaton is because it has a flat top to it. So if you hold it like this and I kind of move it there, you can see how it has that flat top. It doesn't have the point at the top like a Rivoli does, but the back has the point like a Rivoli does. So normally, I personally would call this a Rivoli, but because of the top, it is called a chaton. And look, you can really see like around the edge there, that beautiful, it almost makes it look like a star or a sun, but it's just really pretty. So you're going to need a 16mm crystal chaton. I've got these in lots of different colors if you check on the website. You're going to need 16 6mm fire polish beads, 4 6mm bicones, 12 3mm bicones, 4 4mm fire polish beads. Going to need about 2.5 grams of a size 11 seed bead. Can really be any brand of size 11 seed bead. I'm going to be using Toho today. You're going to need 1 gram of a size 8 seed bead, a 1/2 gram to 1 gram of size 15 seed beads. You will need a drop. So this one that I have here that I'm going to use for this pendant is actually a 22 by 13. The ones on the pendant are a 24 by 12. So you can see kind of the difference in the sizing there on what that's going to look like. So any kind of drop is going to look really nice. These are not necessary, but they are optional. These are a cymbal finding called Miktakas. Miktakas? I don't really know how to say it, but these are cymbal findings, and just to kind of show you, they just give a little bit more of a fun finish to the top and the bottom of the piece. So you can see I've used them here and here. So when you use these, you can see they're not necessary. You don't have to have them. To me, it just adds a little fun thing that we can do with those cymbal pieces. So I've got 2 of these here on the mat. I'm going to show you how to do it with those and without. You're going to need 1 7mm jump ring. This is going to be to attach your drop with. I've got my size 11 or 12 beading needle along with 2 yards of your favorite thread. So go ahead and get your stuff together and let's get started. All right, so number 1 tells me that we are going to thread our needle with our 2 yards of thread. We're going to thread on 8 of our 6mm fire polish beads. It says let these beads fall, leaving about a 6-inch tail thread. Here we go. So I'm going to leave my tail thread. And then it says go back through all 8 beads once more and tie the tail and working thread together. So here we go. I'm going to pass through these again. Get that down there. All right. So I'm passing through them again, and then I'm going to take the tail and the working thread, and I'm going to tie these 2 threads together. Okay, so when you do that, you're going to have a little circle of 8 beads. Before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and take another needle, and I'm going to thread this needle with my short tail thread. And then I'm going to pass this thread through a few beads before I trim this off. All right. I'll actually, if I can go all the way through, I'll do that. You just never, ever, ever want to trim thread at the place where you put a knot. You can see there, I'm actually able to go through it a couple of times, so that works for me. And now I'll take my scissors or my thread zapper or whatever I've got, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the short tail thread. Now, with the needle, the working needle, I'm just going to pass through 1 bead here next to the knot, so that this is what we have after step 1. All right, on step 2, we are going to thread on, oops, let me see if I can get it here so I can show you, 9 of our size 11 seed beads. We are going to skip 1 fire polish bead, and we're going to pass through the next fire polish bead. You can see it's going to make a little loop of beads here. And we are going to do this all the way around. So 3 more times. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 beads. skip a fire polish, and go through the next fire polish bead. So we'll have 4 loops total. At the end of the step, you'll see there I have my 4 loops. So step 3 says I'm going to pass through the next fire polish bead and then through 5 11s of the first set of 9. So I'm going to right here go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going through 5 beads. Now at this point you're working in the opposite direction, but because these loops are going to form the top, if you want to, you can just flip it whichever way you need to keep working. It's no big deal. So from here, coming out of this 5th bead here, I'm going to thread on 2 11s, 1 3mm bicone, and 2 11s. So this is what we got here. And it says pass through the middle 11O of the next loop of 9. So my thread is coming out in this direction, so I have to continue in that direction. Lord, what is this little thread here? There we go. Okay, so I go through the middle bead, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 5th little bead right here. I'm going to go through that bead. There we go. Now, when I go through it, it's going to pull to the top, and that's fine, but I do not want to pull this super tight. I'm going to do this all the way around. So again, each time I go through, I'm doing 2 11s, a 3mm, and 2 11s, and then I'm going to go through the middle bead. Okay, so I've got to do this twice more. After you finish this round, you can see here I have all of my little loops, but it's still very, very, very loose because in step 5, it says set the chaton into the center, opening face up, boom, and pull the thread tightly. So I'm going to put my thumb here as I pull this thread tight so that it looks like this. I'm going to pass through the top row of beads here several times so that it will tighten the encasement. So this just means instead of adding any beads, I'm going to pass through and just pulling the thread tightly. This will even everything out, and within one pass through of it, like once we actually have pulled it tight and we are passing through it a second time, you'll already feel like at this point I don't need to hold it. But if you know, after a second pass through, if it doesn't feel tight, definitely do your thing. Go through it a third time. You're not really going to be using these beads on the top except for one more time. So feel free to pass through it multiple times if you need to. And so look at that encasement. Look how quick and easy that was to encase that beautiful chaton. So I'm going to pass through my first little loop of beads here one more time. And then it says I'm going to exit a fire polish below a 3mm. So you can see here my 3mm are here in these corners. So I want to be coming out of a fire polish below that. So from where I'm coming out here, I'm going to pass through my 11s to come down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to go through one fire polish bead. This brings me out right there where I need to be at that bottom bead. We're going to thread on one size 11 seed bead, one fire polish bead. We're going to throw in a new bead. We're going to thread on our 8O seed bead, one fire polish, and one 11. So again, these are the beads here: an 11, a 6mm fire polish, an 8, a 6mm fire polish, and an 11. I'm going to skip one fire polish bead, and I'm going to pass through the next fire polish bead. And when I do that, it's going to put me a little piece out like this. Now we're going to repeat this 3 more times. So again, it's an 11, a fire polish, an 8, a fire polish, and an 11. And we skip one, go through one, and this is what we have. So I'm going to do this twice more. At the end of that step, this is what your piece will look like. This is from the front, and now this is from the back. So when you finish the round, I should be exiting here. So I continue to pass through the next 11, fire polish, 8, and fire polish. So I'm coming out of the fire polish before a space of beads here. I'm going to thread on an 11, a 4mm fire polish, and an 11. And I'm going to pass through the next fire polish, 8, and fire polish. So I'm skipping that 11. And when you do that, depending on the brand of bead that you're using, if you're using a Miyuki seed bead, you may see some space here, and that is completely okay. That space will get used up as we continue through the rounds. But if you're using a Toho bead, you'll notice that there's not going to be any space here. So that is, it's fine, completely good either way. But we're going to continue picking up our 11, our 4mm fire polish, and our 11, and passing through the 6, the 8, and the 6 until we have added 4 fire polish around the piece. At the end of the row, we are going to exit a size 8 seed bead. So this was the last 11, 4, and 11 that I added. I came through a 6, and now I'm exiting a size 8 seed bead there. I'm going to thread on 1 11, 1 6mm bicone, and 1 11. Now this is where we're actually going to be putting bicones. We're going to put them here, 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 and here. So I've got these beads picked up, and if I turn it to the side right here, it says pass through the centered 11-0 on the top round. So if you look here, the centered 11-0 is this one that we've used to connect basically these 4 little pieces here. So I come to the top, and I'm going to pass through that bead. And of course, you know, we have to make a mess with it here. There we go. Now, take the needle and pass back down through the 11 and the 6mm that you just added. So don't pass through the very first 11, but it's an 11 and a 6. Hold your finger there as you pull that thread straight out so it pulls it tight. Then we're going to thread on an 11 and pass through that 8 again. So now when I hold it to the side here, you can see we have 1 centered 11 right above the 6mm, and then we have 2 11s here on each side, 1 on each. So I've gone through the 8, and now I'm going to pass through the 6mm, the 11, and the 4mm fire polish. So 6, 11, and 4mm fire polish. I'm going to thread on an 11, a 3mm bicone, an 11, and a new bead. We're throwing in a size 15 seed bead. I'm going to pass through the 3mm on top of the encasement right above where my thread is exiting. So if I put my needle, lay it right here, you can see that 3mm. It's right above the 4mm fire polish. So I'm going to take the needle. See, my thread is exiting in this direction, away from my body, if I put it that way. So now I'm going to come through that 3mm bicone coming towards my body. So that way, when I pull it, you see there, it's going to connect this side of the beads. So I'm going to thread on a 15, an 11, a 3mm bicone, and an 11. So it's the same thing. I just picked it up backwards. And now we're going to pass through the 4mm, 11, 6, and then the 8. And so you can see there now how we have a connection here above the fire polish bead. So we have where we're going to add a 6mm here in our 4 corners, and then here between them we are going to do the steps here to add these beads. So I'm going to continue the round until I finish the round. So I've gone all the way around, adding my 6mm and then my 3mm. Now you'll notice that my piece looks different, and it is because as I was going around and adding these 3mm bicones, the Caribbean sea color that I was using just did not look good. It all blended together. So I wanted something to kind of, not blend. So I started over and I popped in these 3mm crystal ABs, and I like it much, much better. So that's why it may look a little bit different. But when you finish the row, you want to make sure that you're coming out of your size 8 seed bead. Does not matter which point, just a size 8 seed bead. And from here, we are going to thread on 6 of our 11 O's. So I have 6 11 O seed beads. And I'm going to pass through the 4mm fire polish. So I'm skipping the beads and just going through that 4mm. And when I do, you'll see how it sits there. So that is step 16 if you're following along on the pattern. So I'm going to thread on 6 11 O's. And I'm going to pass through the next 8O. So it's going to be this one right here. So I'm going to repeat this around the edge so that I have seed bead embellishments all the way around. Once you've gone all the way around the edge, this is what your piece should look like. So these were the last 6 I added, and then I continued to pass through the first 6 beads so that I'm coming out right before the fire polish bead here. I'm going to thread on 2 15s, 1 11, and 2 15s. I'm going to skip the fire polish, and I'm going to pass through the next 6 11 O's. Let's get through those there. And right now, it's just going to kind of sit here like this, and that's okay. We're going to fix it in the next step. I'm going to go through the 8O. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. And then 6 8Os, or 6 11Os. Gosh, I cannot talk right now. Got too many different kinds of beads in this project here. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put on 2 of my 15s, an 11, and 2 15s. I'm going to skip the 4mm, and now this time I'm only going to go through 5 11s. Don't go through the 6th one, only go through 5. So when you do that, this is what it will look like. Now, this is where our little symbol finding is going to come into play. So if you want to use it at this point, what you'll do is you'll see we want it to lay like this. So it has 2 holes. You can see the holes there. So I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass up through the 1 hole here. Whoop. And once I pass through that hole, I'm also going to thread on 5 11s. and then I'm going to pass down through the other hole, and then through the next 5 11s. So I'm skipping an 11 and then going through the 5. So when you do that, this is what it's going to look like. Now, let me show you how to do it if you don't use this little finding. So if you're not going to add the cymbal finding, then when you come out of the 5th 11 here, you're going to pick up your 5 11s, skip an 11, an 8, and an 11, and go through the next 5 of your 11. So it's going to look like this. So then we're going to put in our 15s and our 11 here and here, and then I'm going to come out of the 5th 11 here to start the next step. So you can see now I have beads here and here at those 4 millimeters, and I've come out of this 5th seed bead of a set of 6. So I have my 5 11s down here. So now I'm coming here, and what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to make a another loop here, but a little bit of a larger loop. So this one is going to be 2 11s, 6 15s, and 2 11s. I'm going to skip an 11, an 8, and 11, and then I'm going to pass through the beads to come out of the 15. So you can see there my little loop. I'm going to pass through to come out of the 15 before the 11 that is right above a 4 millimeter fire polish bead. So this is how you want to do it if you are not using the finding. There we go. I'm going to leave that there. So now if you are going to use the finding, let me show you how we would do this part. All right, so when we are going to use our finding, just like we did here at the top, if I flip it this way, we want to have the finding laying like this, and we're going to go through one side of the finding, and I'm going to thread on 1 11, so not 2, only 1 11, and then 6 15s, and 1 11. So all at one time, this is what I would be threading onto the piece. I'm going to let this drop down, and I'm going to come down through the other hole of the finding, and then once I come through, I skip the 11, the 8, and the 11, and I pass through the beads to exit out of that 15 before the 11 that's right there above the 4 millimeter fire polish. So now you can see here the top and the bottom with those little findings. And at this point, whether you're doing with or without, I'm going to skip the 11, and I'm going to pass through the next 2 15s and the 11s there. And when I do that, that's going to pop that 11 out. That's going to give me a point. So I'm going to continue on through the beads here to come out of that next 15 before the 11 there above our little fire polish beads. So at this point, we're reinforcing those outer rows, but we're also making our points. So I'm coming out of that 15, I skip the 11, and I go through the next 2 15s. And now that pops that bead out as well. And so now I am going to, again, come out of that 5th 11, up through the finding, and then through 3 of my 11s. So that now I'm ready to add the bell. So let's talk about the bell size. The bell that I made for this pendant is a double loop bell. And you kind of have to know what you want to put it on before you completely finish out this bell. And the reason I say is however many beads we pick up here is going to determine actually what you can slide this through. So on this one, I have 2, 4, 6, so 13 beads of my loop here on this one. And you can see this slides in about a 3mm chain. And then I still have a little bit of room there. If you want something that is going to go through like a crawl, on this one I have 2, 4, 6, 7, I have 15 beads in this loop, and this has got some 11 crawl here in the center. I have some 8s here on the edges. They did not fit inside of that, so I had to do a little strip of just 11s, but you can see there it's a little bit of a tight fit. So if I was gonna make this bell to do crawl, I might add just a few more beads. However many beads you add in your loop needs to be an odd count of beads. So on this one, I think I went straight by the pattern. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, this one's 17 as well. So I went straight by the pattern because I believe that's what the pattern says. But that's what you want to really kind of decide. We still have to finish out this other side of the pendant. So you need to decide at this point kind of what you want this to go on so you will know what size to make the loop. So with what I'm doing here, when I come out of this single size 11 seed bead, I'm going to go ahead and thread on my first loop of beads. So I'm just going to do it by the pattern, and then let me just double check. I want to make sure. Yes, it's 17. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, so I have my 17 beads. My thread is coming out in this direction. So I want to make a circle. So I'm going to come back through that same bead again to make a circle. Now, once I have made that circle, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass through that loop of beads again to reinforce that one loop. And once you have pulled through all of them, like this, then what we're going to do is we're going to thread on 8 11s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to count 8 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to pass through the 9th bead here. And when I pull that, I want that new loop to come to the front. So again, it's 8 beads. And I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass through the bead here on the base. Again, the new loop, we want to make sure that it stays on the top. Either way, whether you put it to the back or to the front, make sure it stays that direction because we want the same part of the loop on the same side. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to reinforce the loop. So I go through the 8 beads, through that one in the center again.
and then go through the 8 on this side. So that all of that is reinforced. And now you can see our necklace, or whatever we do, is actually going to go in between those loops. So we have loop on the back, loop on the front, and whatever we decide to put on here is going to go into the center part where that opening is now. It's going to slide right into there. So now what I'm going to do, the only thing left at this point besides putting my drop on, is I need to pass down through the beads here and make these points come out just like I did here and here. And then I'm going to reinforce this bottom loop one more time. If you have any extra thread left over, you can go through and reinforce that outer edge one more time, but it's not necessary. And so I'm going to do that on this one, and so you can see what that's going to look like. And if you're not adding the finding, let me grab my needle out here. If you're not adding the finding, I'm going to be doing the loop exactly like I did on this one. It's just not going to have that finding underneath it. So I would do the loop the exact same way. So once you have your thread tied off, and you can see there we have our 4 corners pointed, then all you have to do is use your 7mm jump ring to attach it into the loop there at the bottom of our pendant. So this is the kind of teal one that we just did. And then I loved this one. Oh man, I love this one. I wish you guys could see this in person because it is so much beautiful sparkle. So this one here is kind of, I guess I would call this a Montana finish. And you can see how each one of these can look completely different. I just love all of the color schemes of this pendant, and I cannot wait to see what you guys do with this one.
So guys, I hope that you enjoyed this project. I do have this step-by-step pattern available on my website at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. I also have a select amount of kits available for this project, and again, you can find those on the website. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.